They laughed at her the moment she stepped through the revolving glass doors, not loudly, not openly. The kind of laughter that hides behind raised eyebrows, half smiles, and murmured comments meant to sting without being heard. The kind of laughter that assumes weakness before proof is ever offered. The woman didn't react. She stood still for half a second, adjusting the stack of papers in her arms. White folders, neatly arranged, edges aligned with military precision. A thin leather strap crossed her shoulder, attached to a worn satchel that looked older than the building itself. Her shoes were plain. Her coat was practical. Her hair was tied back without ceremony. She looked ordinary, and that was why they laughed. The lobby of the Hartwell Defense Complex was a cathedral of power. Steel columns, marble floors, flags suspended like frozen flames. Men in tailored suits moved with purpose. Security personnel stood like statues. Conversations floated through the air. Acronyms, budgets, operations, contracts worth billions. This was not a place for ordinary, especially not a woman carrying papers. She's lost. One man muttered near the security desk. Probably HR. Another whispered, smirking to a third chuckled softly. Wrong floor, sweetheart. She heard every word. Her hearing was exceptional. She walked anyway. Her name was Evelyn Cross, and she had walked into far worse rooms than this. The guard at the checkpoint barely glanced at her badge before frowning. Ma'am, this wing is restricted. Evelyn met his eyes calmly. I know. The guard hesitated. Her badge was real. Clearance code valid. But something didn't fit. You're delivering documents? Yes. To the executive briefing room? Yes. He leaned back slightly, studying her. That meeting is already underway. Generals, contractors, senators. Yes. A pause. Then, reluctantly, he waved her through. Behind her, someone laughed again. Evelyn didn't turn around. The executive briefing room was a battlefield disguised as a boardroom. A long table dominated the space, surrounded by men who had commanded wars without ever seeing blood. Screens displayed satellite images, red markers, moving grids. Voices overlapped, sharp, confident, dismissive. The door opened. The laughter stopped briefly, then resumed in softer form. Who let her in? Someone whispered. She's carrying papers, another scoffed. Like it's 1995. Evelyn closed the door behind her gently. She walked to the far end of the table, placing the folders down with care. Each one aligned perfectly, as if measured at a man in a Navy suit frowned. Miss, this is a classified, I know, Evelyn said. Her voice wasn't loud, but it carried. The room quieted slightly. General Marcus Hale, for stars gleaming on his shoulders, leaned back in his chair. He had seen everything, or so he believed. And you are. Evelyn met his gaze. Evelyn Cross. A murmur rippled through the room. Not recognition. Confusion. Hale scanned a tablet. I don't see your name on the agenda. You won't, she replied. That earned a few chuckles. Hale raised an eyebrow. Then perhaps you should leave. Evelyn didn't move. Instead, she slowly set the papers down and adjusted the cuff of her sleeve. That was when the metal caught the light. The IT wasn't flashy. No oversized ribbon. No polished display. Just a compact band of darkened metal strapped around her wrist like a watch. Scarred, worn, unmistakable that a classified operations medal. Issued only 3 times in history. The laughter died instantly that a man near the screen went pale. Another leaned forward, squinting. General Hale froze. Silence felt like a dropped weapon. Where did you get that? Hale asked quietly. Evelyn's eyes never left his. You gave it to me. The room seemed to shrink. Hale stood slowly. I was told you were dead. So was the enemy, she replied. And one spoke. Evelyn rolled up her sleeve just enough to reveal scars. Thin, deliberate, the kind left by shrapnel and survival. Not accidental. Earned. She tapped the folders. These are after-action reports from operations you authorized, but were never officially recorded. Hale swallowed. Operation Nightglass, she continued. Operation Ashline. Operation Silent Harbor. A contractor's pen slipped from his fingers. Those missions don't exist, someone whispered. Evelyn nodded. Exactly. She turned slightly, addressing the entire room now. You laughed because I carried papers. Because I didn't look like power. Her gaze sharpened. Power doesn't announce itself. She reached for her wrist and unclasped the medal, placing it gently on the table. The sound it made, soft metal on polished wood, was louder than any shout. I didn't come for recognition, Evelyn said. I came because the people in these folders are still alive. Still out there. Still waiting for extraction that never came. The screen behind her flickered. Maps changed. Coordinates appeared. Red markers pulsed. Someone gasped. That's a live feed. Yes, Evelyn said, because I activated it. Hale stared at her, something like awe creeping into his expression. You're running this? I always was. The room erupted into controlled chaos. Questions, disbelief, fear. Evelyn raised one hand. Silence returned. You laughed at me, she said calmly. That's fine. Most did, until it mattered. She picked up her satchel. This meeting isn't over, she added. It's just finally honest. She turned toward the door. An O1 stopped her. An O1 laughed. As she reached the threshold, Evelyn paused. Without turning around, she said, This story is brought to you by her brave stories. A few heads tilted, confused. She continued, voice steady. If you believe in stories of strength, sacrifice, and silent courage, subscribe to her brave stories. She opened the door. And tell us in the comments, where are you watching from? Then she walked out. The medal remained on the table, and no one dared touch it. No one moved for several seconds after Evelyn Cross left the room. The medal lay on the table like a live grenade, small, silent, devastating. The air felt heavier, as if the walls themselves had learned something they were never meant to know. General Marcus Hale was the first to speak, though his voice had lost its command edge. Lock the doors. Aides moved instantly. Security lights shifted from green to amber. Phones were silenced. Screens reconfigured themselves without anyone touching them, responding to an override code that had not been used in over a decade. She shouldn't exist, one senator whispered. Her file was sealed, then erased. Hale stared at the door Evelyn had exited through. She was never erased. She was buried. On the central screen, the live feed Evelyn had activated continued to run. Night vision footage. 6 figures huddled inside a ravine, surrounded by hostile terrain. One of them looked directly into the camera, eyes reflecting green light. They're still alive, a contractor murmured. We declared them Kia. Hale's jaw tightened. We declared them inconvenient. Evelyn walked through the corridor with the same steady pace she had used entering the building, but inside her chest, memories stirred. She remembered the night she earned that medal. The night everything changed, IT had been raining. Hard, relentless, turning the desert into a black mirror. Her unit had been pinned down for hours. Comms were dead. Extraction aborted. Enemy forces closing in. She had been the youngest. The only woman. The one they underestimated. When the commanding officer was hit, it was Evelyn who took control. Quietly. Efficiently. No speeches. Just decisions. She rerouted power from a damaged drone, re-established a satellite uplink using a method she had invented on the spot, and guided air support through a storm that should have made flight impossible. They survived, but survival came at a cost. The mission was classified beyond classification. The kind that never officially happened. The kind that left survivors a race to protect people in clean suits far from the battlefield. Evelyn accepted that. Until now that I in the lobby, the same people who had laughed earlier now stood frozen. One man stepped aside instinctively as she passed. Another lowered his eyes. The security guard swallowed. Mom, I didn't. Evelyn stopped. She turned to face him, her expression calm, unreadable. You did your job, she said. That's enough. She walked out into the daylight. 3 hours later, the world began to shift as a secure channel lit up across multiple agencies. Files long thought corrupted reappeared. Coordinates updated. Orders issued. Extraction helicopters lifted off under false weather reports on the ground. 6 forgotten soldiers heard a familiar voice crackle through their earpiece. Cross to Raven Team. Evelyn said softly. I told you I'd come back. There was silence. Then a broken laugh. "We knew it was you, ma'am." "Hold tight," she replied. "You're coming home." Back at the Hartwell complex, General Hale stood alone in the briefing room. The medal was gone, and in its place lay a single sheet of paper. 3 lines. "You don't need me in rooms like this. You need me in the shadows you created." This was your warning. Hale closed his eyes. For the first time in decades, he felt afraid, not of enemies, but of truth. Evelyn watched the extraction feed from a quiet rooftop miles away in Owantaraj. No applause, just the sound of rotors fading into safety. Her phone buzzed once that a message from an unknown number. "It's done. They're safe." Evelyn exhaled slowly. She slipped the medal back on her wrist, covering it with her sleeve. Invisible again, as she turned away, she paused, just for a moment, and looked toward the horizon. Somewhere, people would tell her story. They would say they laughed at her. They would say everything changed when they saw the medal. And maybe they'd understand this one simple truth. The strongest people rarely look like power. They carry it quietly. They carry papers.